Good morning. My name is Victoria Leonard, and I am your lay worship leader for today's service. I warmly welcome you to First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bridgewater. I've been a member here for a little over a year, and I serve on the worship committee, I sing in the choir, and I play in the Tone Chimes choir. What I love about First Parish is that we all have the chance and the opportunity to participate however much or however little we want in the services, and everyone's gifts are welcome and appreciated. This morning, we are pleased to welcome our guest worship coordinators and associates, David Page and Mark Lindy. Before we begin our time of worship, we do have a few announcements. The first announcement is from Debbie, from the Kitchen Elves, not Debbie, the elves. Thanks to everyone who stopped by the kitchen to collect serving pieces and paraphernalia left behind. Please check the kitchen if you think there might be something of yours on the island or counters. Items left behind may be donated after next Sunday. Thank you. Our next announcement is that there will be a raising of the Pride flag at the Bridgewater Public Library on Monday, June 2nd, and again on Monday, June 16th. Juneteenth flag on June 16th, Pride flag on June 2nd at 3:30 p.m. Thank you. Okay. Reverend Rachel? Oh, perfect, has an announcement as well.
Well, along with Juneteenth, we also have, right in this church on June 8th, Sunday, June 8th, a afternoon of gospel. We had that last year, and we will have it this year in the Upper Parish Hall because we expect some dancers, and the floor is better in there. So we welcome you on Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4. We're hosting it, and there'll be maybe 4 performers coming to our church, so that should be really great. I might need somebody to help a little bit with the refreshments afterwards, serving the coffee and cookies and whatever we have. The big thing is that Juneteenth itself, Saturday, January 21st, it will again be on the BSU East Campus at the University Park. Last year we had it there. It was a rather big event. So we again, we'll have a church table there. Of course, we will need volunteers to help with the table. So because we are a co-sponsor of Juneteenth, we'll get the table from the BSU events department, but we need people to bring over canopy, chairs, display materials, and to set up everything, to staff the table, to take it down, and to drive it back to the church. So I have a sign-up sheet. The setup time, I should say, will begin at 12 noon that day. So you don't have to stay for the whole time. You don't have to do all the jobs. We just need people who are willing to sign up. So here's the sign-up sheet. I will have it at coffee hour. So thank you.
Reverend Rachel? Got one more. Kat?
Good morning. I have 2 announcements. Today at noon, we're going to have our pre-annual budget meeting. So if you're interested in discussing what is budgeted for next year, I encourage you to join us. It's going to be very exciting. And my second announcement is the stewardship team is proud to present our 2nd annual Seat at the Plate auction, which is going to be held on June 22nd here at noon. And so I'm looking for volunteers to either be hosts for this event by providing a meal, or to provide to-go items that people can pick up at the auction. So there was an announcement in the bridging. All of the details are there, but if you have questions, come find me. Thanks.
Angela?
Good morning. So today at 11:45, right before the budget meeting, we are going to have our first planning meeting for the 4th of July event that we do here at the church. So we'll have it right here in the sanctuary.
First Parish Bridgewater is a welcoming congregation. We proudly fly the rainbow flag to symbolize our welcome to people of all identities, ages, and backgrounds. If you are new to First Parish, we hope you enjoy your experience this morning. We encourage you to fill out the guest book on the table at the rear of the sanctuary, making sure to include your email address to receive church updates. For newcomers joining online, please see the sign-up link posted in the chat. We invite all who are here in person to join us after the service for a time of fellowship in the Upper Parish Hall. This service is being hosted via Zoom. I'd like to take a moment to turn around and wave to our friends who are on Zoom. Hi, everybody. It is being recorded for Bridgewater Cable TV and for YouTube. You can find the link to the YouTube video in the weekly bridging. The recording camera is turned off to protect your privacy during the sharing of joys and sorrows. In the event of an emergency or evacuation drill, please leave the building through the main sanctuary doors behind us, or should you need a ramp, through the School Street entrance to my left. You are welcome here. Thank you for joining us. Your presence makes a difference. We will now begin our time of worship with the prelude.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must a cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head, pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Would Mark please come forward to light our chalice? Please join in reciting our chalice lighting words.
We light our chalice to mark this sacred hour as we gather in this beautiful historic sanctuary, both in body and spirit. We connect to many generations that have come here to explore the divine. Let us
please rise in body or spirit, and let us join our voices for the affirmation of our covenant.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our opening words today come from a poem by Elna Dean, who was the mother of a handful of boys, and during World War II, her sons were going off to war, and she wrote this poem, which was discovered many years later and published. It's called Let Them In, Peter. Let them in, Peter. They are very tired. Give them couches where the angels sleep, and light those fires. Let them wake whole again to brand new dawns, fired by the sun, not wartime's bloody guns. May their peace be deep. Remember where the broken bodies lie. God knows how young they were to have to die. God knows how young they were to have to die. So give them things they like. Let them make some noise. Give dance hall bands, not golden harps, to these our boys. And let them love Peter, for they've had no time. They should have trees and bird songs and hills to climb. The taste of summer in a ripened pear, and girls sweet as meadow wind with flowing hair. And tell them they are missed, but say not to fear. It's gonna be all right with us down here. Let them in, Peter. Let them in. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, which is number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. And we will be singing all 3 verses, I believe.
I hear the
Now is the time in our service for the sharing of joys and sorrows, those matters of great personal significance that touch us, our families, and our loved ones. If you have a joy or a sorrow, please come to the front to light a candle. If you would like to speak, please keep your sharing brief at this time so that the ritual moves smoothly. You may also choose to light your candle in silence. Online participants are invited to share by typing your joys and sorrows into the chat. A volunteer in the sanctuary will read them aloud.
Good morning, everybody. I have a reading. Amy Petrie-Shaw is the author, and since the words aren't up there, I will tell you it's responsive, and I'll say the first line, and then you will say, "We lift up our hearts." Okay? So here we go. For all who die in war, we lift up our hearts. For all who live in suffering in the aftermath of violence, we lift up our hearts. For all who give their lives in smoke and flame, we lift up our hearts. For all who go on to honor the dead, we lift up our hearts. For all who have served, we lift up our hearts. For our country and our world, we lift up our hearts. For a planet that will find peace, we lift up our hearts. For the young and the innocent, we lift up our hearts. For the weary and the war-torn, we lift up our hearts. For those who would pray, we lift up our hearts. For those too angry to cry, we lift up our hearts. For all of us, for the many names of God, we lift up our hearts. And I'll say it a second time, we lift up our hearts. Shanti, shalom, peace, salam, amen. Okay, and now I'm going to ask you to join us in our hymn. It's hymn number 168, One More Step.
Each Sunday, we collect an offering to support the ministries of the church and the mission of a community organization that shares our faith values. This month, contributions to our collection plate are being shared with Kids to Camp, which allows students to spend a week in nature, and because of the generosity of this parish, 55 students have been able to experience their week at camp. You may also donate online through the First Parish Church website. This morning's offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Girls picked them, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Taken husbands, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young men gone? Gone for soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
Hello again. My father, who was in the U.S. Army during World War II, had a favorite president. His name was Harry S. Truman, and his quote was, "Our debt to the heroic men and valiant women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our undying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifices." So one of my favorite books is by Tom Brokaw, talking about the greatest generation. The greatest generation were born all the way through 1927, which happened to be the year that my dad was born. And one thing he never talked about really was his service. To me, he was a hero. I just realized that 2025 is 50 years since I've been going to Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies. I had the honor and privilege of covering them for my community via cable TV in the various communities that I was in. Those weren't holidays off for me. And tomorrow I'll get a chance to march in our Memorial Day parade as a town councilor. So that's of great specialty to me. So the definition of a hero is having these following characteristics: courage and bravery, noble character, self-sacrifice, inspiration and role modeling, extraordinary achievements, making a difference, overcoming adversity, and living authentically. These were things my dad did. My dad had some pretty cushy assignments. He was stationed on the isle of one of the Greek islands. He was at the Vatican, but he was a paratrooper. And he paratrooped into Germany and Poland. His uncle was in 9 camps. His last camp, my father liberated him from. His name was Philip. My youngest son is named Philip. That's his wedding ring. My dad gave to me a month before he passed away, and I cherish it. Philip was a very kind, gentle man who lost his wife at age 30 and his daughter at 2. Had I had a daughter, would have been Irena. And I think of him every day when I think of veterans and I think of war. Dad didn't talk about it. I worked in media. I tried to get him to go in front of a camera, to go even audio, anything like that. Couldn't get him to do it. The only time he did it was for a friend of ours named Bob McCormick, who did a thing called Veterans History Project, where they interviewed local veterans and they put them in the local library and they went to the Library of Congress. So my dad did a 1-hour interview with him, which I cherish. My dad enlisted at age 17. He lied about his age. His mother certainly would not have wanted him to go to war, but he thought his grandparents were still alive. Now, my dad was a native of Cuba. He was born in Cuba. He came to this country when he was 12. And when I was researching a little bit more about my family, he went to St. Louis and then to Nashville. I found an article in what was called the Nashville Banner with my grandmother and him trying to get in touch with the International Red Cross to find out about his grandparents. Little did he know that they were already killed, but he wanted to know more. He almost got himself in trouble. He wanted to hijack a plane to go and find them, all of that. But he didn't really talk about it. But Tom Brokaw talked about things that were very important, and these are things I learned from my father, and we can learn from all service members, okay? War is horrible. Unfortunately, in the name of freedom and liberty, we have to fight some wars. So the greatest generation, I didn't give you the date at the beginning, were born roughly between 1901 and 1927. They came of age during the Great Depression and World War II. Here are some of their characteristics. Resilience and perseverance, important traits. A strong work ethic. Frugality and prudent saving. Personal responsibility, self-sacrifice and duty, patriotism and civic responsibility. My father always loved the flag, he liked America the Beautiful. He liked that better than the Star-Spangled Banner, I'll be honest with you, which I think is a beautiful song. Humility, a modest demeanor. He never talked about himself. Oh, I didn't do anything special. Yeah, you did. Integrity and trustworthiness, commitment and optimism and pragmatism. So these were things that I learned from him that have carried me through. I will go tomorrow, either before or after the Memorial Parade, to his grave over in Sharon, Mass. I always put a flag for Memorial Day. I put a flag for Veterans Day. Oh, I forgot to tell you, he was married on Veterans Day because he had to go to work the next day, and my mother was a school teacher, so they had a 3-day honeymoon, okay? But November 11th is a special day. For their anniversary, they were married 66 years. My dad was a parole officer in real life. He truly believed in people that went to jail, that could turn their lives around and get out and have a better life, okay? His joke, though, and I did repeat it at his funeral, he will be gone 8 years on the September 11th of this year. He said he was married so long it was life without parole 3 times. My mother didn't appreciate that, but my dad had a real funny sense of humor, and he loved to make people laugh. So it's ironic that the person that's going to speak after me is also named David. My dad was David. It's a special name. And my dad wore hats, just like David Page. And David Page is going to come up to you and talk to you next. He has more of the history lesson than I do. Thank you. The parade in town will start, we have to get there at 10. It's 10:30 from Perkins up to the Common, and there'll be a ceremony on the Common right afterwards. David, you're up.
There are no victories in war. There are no winners. Just sometimes, if you're lucky, the opportunity to lose less painfully. But that's only Someone once said that the only winner of the War of 1812 was Tchaikovsky, but that's only because he wasn't there. War is without exception a tragedy for all who are involved. There is no such thing as a good war, although I believe they are sometimes necessary. But we are not here today to defend or condemn war or to decide which wars were just and which ones were not. We are here to remember those we sent off to war, so many of whom never came home. Tomorrow is Memorial Day, a national holiday since 1868. Originally, it was called Decoration Day and was meant to honor the dead on both sides of the American Civil War. There were a lot of them, at least 618,000. Some estimates are over 700,000. And for every 3 deaths, 2 more were wounded. Over 1 million Americans killed or wounded in that most awful of all our wars. More Americans died in that conflict than all the rest of the wars combined. With a population at that time of only 30 million, you can imagine how it must have touched every family. And so every year on that last Monday in May, we honor our war dead, counting all our wars, 1.2 million souls, those people who President Lincoln described as having given the last full measure of devotion, 1.2 million men and women who never went home. During the Civil War, there were many makeshift prisoner of war camps set up, both north and south. Few of them met even minimum standards of cleanliness and nutrition, and death rates among prisoners was extremely high. Surviving photos show prisoners so emaciated that they are indistinguishable from photos taken in the Nazi death camps at the end of World War II. The Washington Race Course in Charleston, South Carolina, was used as one of these camps. It was a camp like all the others: starvation, disease, and death. The Union soldiers who died there were buried in mass graves. At the end of the war, a group of freed black Americans took it upon themselves to exhume all the bodies and rebury them in individual graves. At the end of the war, a group of freed black Americans, on May 1st, 1865, 10,000 black people, all of them freed slaves, held sermons and a picnic at that graveyard in what has come to be considered the first Memorial Day celebration. But what about those that didn't die? As near as I can tell, about 1.5 million Americans were wounded seriously enough to be relieved of combat since the founding of the Republic. In recent wars with better equipment and medical care, we have far more people surviving wounds that would surely have killed them in previous wars. In World War II, the wounded to killed ratio was 2-to-1. Now it is 8-to-1. The result is a need for medical services that our government doesn't come close to meeting. The people who work on these VA centers do a wonderful job, but they do it with too little money and too few personnel. Go to the VA hospital in Brockton. There is a seemingly endless parade of veterans in wheelchairs and leaning on canes, people with missing limbs, blind, sometimes with disfiguring wounds. I don't know how many wounded veterans there are, but there were 153 VA hospitals and 773 outpatient centers in America, and it isn't enough. All our wars have been, to some extent, children's crusades. During the Vietnam War, the draft started at age 18. You could join at 17 with your parents' permission. It wasn't unusual for a 17-year-old boy to be on combat patrol in Vietnam. My friend Victor, a deceased member of this church, was on just such a patrol at 17 as a member of the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One of World War II fame. His squad of 6 or 7 men was ordered to set up an ambush in a clearing at night. They waited in the tall grass until they heard the clink and rattle of the combat gear of North Vietnamese soldiers. As these soldiers entered the clearing, it became apparent that it was a full company of about 180 men. To open fire would have been suicide. So these young GIs lay face down in the grass and sweated and tried not to breathe, and prayed that they wouldn't be noticed. Victor said that as he waited, he became convinced that the North Vietnamese soldiers could hear the pounding of his heart. Now, until his death, hardly a month went by that he didn't wake up, sometimes to a smashed lamp or a broken bedside table, covered with sweat, forever 17, forever face down in the tall grass of Vietnam, forever convinced that the North Vietnamese soldiers just a few feet away could hear the pounding of his heart. Someone said that in war there are no unwounded soldiers. Nearly every friend I had growing up went to Vietnam. All of them were damaged by that war. Not all of them were able to integrate back into civilian life without struggle. One of them was still on methadone when I saw him 25 years ago. Almost all of them are now dead, either from suicide or Agent Orange. When people return from war, they are very much changed. It happens to all soldiers whether they see combat or not. Of course, if they do see combat, then the change is that much greater, but they are all changed. They no longer fit into civilian life. They are not at ease with it. Ernest Hemingway tells how, when he returned to his parents' home in Michigan, after suffering severe wounds in World War I Italy, being decorated for heroism under fire and watching friends die, his father wouldn't let him use the car. He didn't stay there long. He and his parents might as well have come from separate planets. His parents couldn't understand what he'd been through and how much he had changed. It wasn't their fault. How could they know? They weren't there. But he spent the rest of his life trying to explain it. He wrote as if his life depended on it, and perhaps it did. We know that on any day he didn't write, he experienced a deep depression, a death loneliness, he called it. And what he wrote about mostly was war. When he wasn't writing, he was courting danger, running with bulls, hunting big game in Africa, being a war correspondent, always haunted by a time in his youth when he was never more frightened, never more brave, and never more alive. In the end, the writing and the risk-taking weren't enough. His demons caught up with him, and he took his own life. POWs, prisoners of war, suffered perhaps worse than anyone. They lived at the mercy of their sometimes merciless captors. There was a kid who grew up in my town a few years younger than I. His father was a doctor, and this kid had a bright future. He could have used college to avoid military service, but chose not to do that. He joined the Army, went to Vietnam, was captured, and so became a POW. When he was released at the end of the war and returned to the U.S., any vision he had had for the future was gone. He could see no light. He struggled with darkness and despair. One night, about 6 months after returning, he gave up the struggle. He took a handgun, went into his room, closed the door behind him, and found his own path out of the wilderness. His name isn't on any wall anywhere, but it should be. I'm sure some of you remember the movie Pork Chop Hill. In it, Gregory Peck played the part of Lieutenant Joe Clemens, who lost most of his platoon in a brutal battle during the Korean War. He stayed in the Army and was my battalion commander when I was stationed in Bamberg, Germany. By then, he was Lieutenant Colonel Joe Clemens. We were in awe of him. He was a legend. He was obsessed with training, and he drove us mercilessly. Many of us resented him because we were young and had other priorities. But in retrospect, I think he understood that with another war raging in Asia, training was the only thing that would keep us alive should we go there. One night on maneuvers, he sat in my scout track, and we talked for a short time. After that night, I came to see him, not as a legend created by Hollywood, but as a kind-hearted man who had seen too much of death. In the spring of '65, I responded to a call for volunteers to go to Vietnam. I had about 15 months left before leaving the Army, and a tour of duty in Vietnam was for 1 year. About 3 months went by, and I asked my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Marroquin, why I hadn't heard anything. Sergeant Marroquin was one of the most decent, honorable men I have ever known. Up until that time, one of the few men that I had any respect for. He was incapable of compromising his principles. He was tough. The men in his platoon called him the Wall because once he decided something was right, then that was what was going to happen. He was Mexican-born, but he loved the United States and he loved the Army. I asked him why I hadn't heard anything. He told me that he had taken my name off the volunteer list. He said I didn't want to go there. But shortly after he went, and a few months later, we got word that he was dead. Recently, thankfully, I found out that it wasn't true. It was a much younger man with the same name who died that winter. I was happy to know that he survived and pleased with the thought that he went on to teach others what he had taught me. In time of war, civilians suffer more than anyone. Something more than 60 million people died in World War II. Only about a third of them were combatants. When I was first married, we lived in Stepney in East London. It was 1968. I often ran into a woman on the street who was looking for her little girl. She would describe what the child was wearing, what she looked like, how tall she was. After meeting the woman a few times, I asked a local shopkeeper about her. I was told that the child had been killed in the Blitz, the bombing of London, almost 30 years ago. This poor woman, driven mad by grief, had been searching the streets of London for almost 3 decades, trying to find her lost little girl. People wonder why veterans band together and form fraternal organizations, why they wear insignia and greet each other on the street. It's because they're at ease with one another. They understand without explanation. They remember a time when they could trust the people around them, their brothers and sisters in arms, when they knew without question that no one would let them down. About 30 years ago, I returned to Germany with my wife and 2 of my children to show them the place where I had been as a young soldier. At one point, we stopped a couple of American soldiers to ask them if they could recommend a good restaurant. They took us to their favorite restaurant, introduced us to the owner, and told them I had been a soldier and asked him to look out for us. It felt good to know I was still in the club. It's hard for people who haven't experienced war to understand what it is that keeps these veterans from putting the past behind them. It is certainly the things they endured and sometimes the things they did in the arrogance and thoughtlessness of youth that haunts their dreams. But even more than that, it's what they learned about life and about themselves. We all learn these things eventually, but in the crucible of war, they learn them too quickly and too young. They learn these things too soon. They learn how fragile, how tentative life is. They learn the terrible strength that comes from standing your ground when all your instincts are telling you to run. They learn the sorrow of lost friends. We learn these hard lessons also, but we learn them slowly, over time, cushioned by life's softening joys. In war, a soldier thinks mostly about 2 things: staying alive and going home. If he manages to survive the battlefield, he has then to face the hardest lesson of all. Because the home a soldier dreams about isn't just a place, it's a time a time of youth and innocence, a time before terrible knowledge and sadness, and he can never go home again. People are fond of thanking veterans for their service. It rubs veterans the wrong way. You thank servants and repairmen. Veterans don't want to be thanked. All they ever wanted was to go home. All they ever wanted was to be welcomed home. So don't thank them for their service. Welcome them home. Welcome home, brothers and sisters. Welcome home.
Please join us in singing our closing hymn, number 159.
Thank you, David and Mark. That was wonderful. Each week, we gather in this beautiful space to find peace. Each week, words and music offer and celebrate peace with the hope of instilling it in us. Now take the peace that you have found here back out into the world with you. Renewed in our faith and inspired to act, let us be the peacemakers the world aches for, and by being the peacemakers, find the peace we long for. Go in peace, make peace, be at peace. Amen. The time has come to extinguish our chalice. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we gather in our hearts until we are dark together.
Let them in, Peter. They are very tired. Give them couches where the angels sleep, and light those fires. Let them wake whole again to brand new dawns, fired with the sun, not wartime's bloody guns. May their peace be deep. Remember where the broken bodies lie. God knows how young they were to have to die. God knows how young they were to have to die. Give them things they like. Let them make some noise. Give roadhouse bands, not golden harps, to these our boys. And let them love Peter, 'cause they've had no time. They should have trees and bird songs and hills to climb. The taste of summer in a ripened pear, and girls sweet as meadow winds with flowing hair. Tell them how they are missed, and say not to fear. It's gonna be alright with us down here. Let them in, Peter.
Our time of fellowship now begins. If you would like to stay and socialize and have some refreshments, please make your way to the upper parish hall. Thank you.
You can blow out the candles.